Um, I started about 10 years ago. Actually, before that, I had a few watches, and I just kept them in a box. I used to take them out and put them on, wear them, try to fix them, which was impossible. Some of them, old Zenith watches, impossible to fix. And about 10 years ago, I started to get more interested and do some research. A lot online, there was a lot on the internet. Old books, finding old books was a great resource, and I found that there were other people also trying to gather information, and we formed a little bit of a community.
It's wonderful. What's the first watch you can kind of remember from your childhood or anything else that caught your interest?
It's funny, but my father had a jeweler that he used named Emil, who was down on 47th Street, and one day I was in his shop, little shop, and he was wearing a Patek automatic, this beautiful watch, and he also had some other watches and things. And I remember thinking, God, that thing is just beautiful. And he, later when he closed his business and he went out of business and everything, I had an opportunity, because I had a little bit of money, to say, I always loved that Patek, and he said, here's the price, you can have it. And I actually ended up buying it from him. So it was really like the first watch. And it's the only Patek that I've ever owned.
And you still have it?
I do.
Yeah, it's a beautiful watch.
Yeah.
So tell me about what advice you would have for collectors today, what you see on the market. A lot's changed in a decade. I got into it about a decade ago as well. Mm-hmm. What you've seen sort of over the last decade, lessons you'd have?
I think that the most important thing is to develop your own taste. Everybody has to develop their own taste, whatever it is that they like. It has to appeal to you. There are other people who like other things, and I appreciate what other people like. I do like almost everything, as you know, but there are certain things that really appeal to me. And when I go around looking at things, I see other things that other people might like, and I might be interested in them as well, but I'm always looking for that special thing that draws me in.
Would you have a sort of top 5 watches in your collection?
In my collection?
Yeah, it's like the last 5 to go. If you had to sell them all or running out of the house.
Oh my gosh, only 5. Boy, it would be a really, really tough one. That Patek would probably go, just because it has a story.
Yeah.
I have to say, Zenith is one of my favorite brands, and I don't know if I could choose one of them, but as another watch collector once told me, he said, like, Zenith is the gateway drug. It's the gateway watch into so many other things, and I think, Universal, Movado, there's just a million other things, but I think it would have to be some kind of El Primero, unusual El Primero, maybe gold or something like that you don't see too many of. And Jaeger, I have the Polaris 2, I think is one of the coolest watches ever made. And there's 3 different models, and I think you gotta have one of those. I do. Yeah. You gotta have one. I think the red one is probably my favorite. But, those would be the top ones, I think.
That's great. I was just wondering, what are your sort of top 3 grails, if you have any things you're really hunting? You're always hunting something.
I'm not really hunting anything anymore. I think I've really achieved everything that I sought out. I mean, there were a few. There was a late Universal tri-compacts, the one with the chocolate brown dials. Oh, yeah. I looked for one for those, yes, forever and ever, and I finally found a good one. It was the 4th one that I saw, and I bought it.
Yeah.
I saw 3, they were sold before I even had a chance to get them, and the 4th one I got. They're that good.
It's a very cool one.
Yeah.
A lot like the El Primero gold case, same case.
Yes.
What advice beyond developing taste would you say? What was your journey to becoming a collector forums, any particular forums you liked,
Uh,
websites?
Well, Lou S. is one of the greatest watch experts that I know, and was really helpful. Just reading his forums, what he knows, because I'm interested in Universal and Zenith and Movado. He's interested in that too, and many other things. I think that one of the most important things for any collector of anything actually is to educate yourself. And you need to see a lot of things. You need to see something 5, 6, 10 times, if you can. Some of these things like that Blancpain 50 fathoms, you may see one in your life right there. But if you can see as many as you can and be able to identify the differences, the subtle things, people made changes. These things are 50, 60, 70 years old, some of them. And you need to be able to recognize them. Relationships, being honest, of course. If you're honest with people, if you're fair with people, if you know the value of something and you're not trying to get one over on somebody, that comes back to you. Again and again, the best things I get are things that are from people I've had established relationships with over long periods of time.
And tell me a little bit about the origin of deciding to put a small group of 32 watches in this auction.
I think we talked about this for a long time, and I think what the idea was to put some of these are amazing pieces. Every single watch in this collection, not just my 32, every single one, are amazing pieces, and people should have the opportunity to have them in their collection if they want. They're available, and to know that they come from a good source.
Yeah.
To know that this stuff is available, not just on the internet, Instagram, in books, behind a case. You could actually own these things and put them on your wrist. And I think that was the main idea. Put this stuff out there. People have knowledge, match it with your collection.
And one thing I think we both talked about over the last decade is a lot of the supply has dried up for these really rare and interesting watches. They used to be much more easily obtained on eBay and elsewhere. Some of these watches we haven't seen on the market in years. They're not expensive in the world of watch collecting, 1,000 to 2,000, but they're sometimes some of these watches maybe can exist.
Yes.
Knowing the collector market, things like that.
Yes, it used to be you would go out to a watch dealer or some shop in Paris or London, not London, but Paris or New York or another city, and you would see the same watches you would see in every other store. But behind there was some things in a little tray. You might see something peeking out, and you say, "What about that thing?" I go, "Oh, no, I don't know. That's da, da, da." You have to get him to actually show it to you. Yeah. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. People are smart, as they've educated themselves, and they're willing to pay. But we've been doing this a long time, and I think that we know what's right. We know what's good. We've always looked for original, unmonkeyed with, if possible. Everything the way it should be. And if something's been changed, then that's the way it is. And you can change it if you find the original part. But for me, I just put it on my wrist and wear it. It's just fine.
And one thing that's really interesting about your approach is, of course, you like really nice, original, unmonkeyed with pieces, as you said, but you also like watches that you describe as hammered that have had a really interesting life.
I do. I like hammered watches. I think you do too.
Yeah.
Patina, if they call it patina, that's a fancy word for hammered. But the idea being that a watch has a life and has a story. Yeah. There's that book that I never saw, I just saw it here. It's called A Man and His Watch. Has all the stories of a watch and the person who owned it. It's great. And we love engravings, are fantastic. You can do research on the person who owned this watch. Sometimes it's a person in your family. Sometimes it's somebody you never met, but their story is incredible. And when you see the patina, you also know that the watch was made a lot of times by one person in Switzerland in a little house, put together by one person, and it's just remained that way. Yeah. Maybe oiled, maybe clean, maybe that's fine. But that everything is there, and a little bit of patina on the edge of a dial will tell you that watch was born that way. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Other watches have had dials replaced, and that's normal too. But we like to see a little story.
Yeah.
I mean,
When I look at the future of the market for watch collecting, and I look at potential good things happening, and potential bad things happening, I think one of the negatives is people wanting things too mint, which is, it's cyclical, and that happened in the 80s. Everyone was polishing every case and doing all this stuff, changing dials, what the market in the Rolex community calls optimizing the watch, putting a better dial in the case, doing other things. And a lot of people coming in want a watch to look new because they're just approaching it the wrong way. Well, at the same time, within the collector market, there's a whole group of people loving unrestored, seeing it on original strap, original bracelet, seeing it look cohesive as a whole.
yes.
And if I look at different possible outcomes for where the market's going, one fear I have is that everyone wants everything to mint, and there's tons of unnecessary restoration. So I think that it's important for people to appreciate watches that have patina on the dial, that maybe aren't perfect, but that are, I personally really like untouched, unpolished, as original as possible. But if it's cohesive and there's patina, it's okay, it's cool. That's always been my approach.
It is cool, and if you look at the art market, the car market, you find that if you have an unrestored 1965 Mustang, and it's different from every single other one, it is absolutely unique. Where it's worn and where it's scratched and where it's beaten up makes your car absolutely unique. Well, this was a car that was made, they made a million of them.
Yeah.
I want to have a unique one. If I'm going to pay top dollar or a lot of money for a car, I want to have a unique version of that car. Not just the same as every other person, and certainly not with new parts added onto it that just make it look like everybody else's. This is what you're talking about, and people can do damage as well, you know. Dials get lost, hands get lost, and then that artwork, I think we consider it to be a little wearable piece of art, is now looks like every other thing.
Yeah. One other pitfall I see for the collector market is just solely focused on Rolex. There's life beyond Rolex, is what I like to tell people. There's life before Rolex and life after Rolex. And I think that's a philosophy we both share. You have a 1016 you really love.
Yes, it's one of my favorite watches. The Explorer is a great watch, and actually that guy who sold me the Patek, he sold me a 1016, and he said, you should buy this. These are going to be untouchable in a few years, and you should get it now. And I bought it, and he was right. It's a great watch to wear. It's fantastic. It's fine. I have one of many different brands, and having one Rolex is fine. But you're absolutely right. And I've never said, we've talked about this, I appreciate people having their own taste. People like Rolex. People like all kinds of different things. And they're putting money and taking money and putting it back in to a market which we love and we appreciate. And their tastes will change and evolve. I think nobody is 30, 40 years old is going to buy a watch and wear it for the rest of their life. Yeah. That's not really, not anybody who's interested in vintage watches is not going to do that. Yeah. And eventually they'll come around. There are so many amazing companies. I mean, we both love International, an amazing company with super high quality things and variation, and there are still things to be discovered. There are models that we've never seen before.
That's true.
That are still out there. It's exciting.
What brands would you recommend for people just to get them out there?
International.
International.
Of course. International watch. I love Eterna. Eterna.
Very few people think about Eterna.
Eterna was a company that had made their own movements, and a lot of people bought them, and they were called ETA, which later was bought. And you find them in millions of watches all through the years. But Eterna is one of the best quality companies, and they had some really great Conti keys are fantastic. There are just a million different variations. Great bracelets, great details, great watch company. At one time, Porsche Design bought them. The designs were also great. What other companies? Movado, I love Movado. Farver-Luba is a company that few people know about, but it's one of the most important watch companies, I think, in the history of watchmaking. And at one time, they owned Jaeger-LeCoultre, and they actually use that as a means to get more of their product out there because they were so unknown. But they're a fantastic company. There's a lot of unknown. Certina, of course. Few people know about it, but it's a fantastic company. Quality is top, and the prices are very reasonable.